Welcome to Military Spouse World 1-to-1, a weekday podcast featuring a military family shaker and mover, helping you navigate this amazing chapter in life. Here's your host, Dave Etter.
On today's edition of Spouse World 1-to-1, we get a chance to meet with Kristine Schellhaus. She's the author of 15 Years of War, available at your favorite bookseller. Now, let's hear from Kristine. Hello, Kristine. How are you doing?
Excellent, Dave. Thanks for having me on your show.
You've authored a book, 15 Years of War. Tell me a little bit about the book.
I have. I'm going to go back one step real quick because the book was kind of my second chapter. I started a website called USMC Life as a way to help families move. And this was all pre-Facebook. It was in 2009. Facebook was just kind of getting started, but we didn't have the ability to have groups and share information. My husband was asking me, do you want to move to Bridgeport? Do you want to move to Hawaii? What do you want the list to say? And I was like, well, heck if I know. Like, I knew nothing about any of the areas, and so I thought there's got to be another way. So in 29 Palms, I decided to put together a base guide to help family members who are PCSing find the best areas to live, discover a little bit about the base and the area that it has to offer. And then I did that for several years. I sold my company in early 2015, and I started talking to spouses about networking and creating relationships, and everyone kept asking me, when am I going to read your book? So I thought, well, I need to write a book. So that's how the book came about. I really never set out, or when I was younger, thought about becoming an author.
What is it you're referring to when you say 15 Years of War?
I met my Marine in college. He had just finished his enlistment, and he said he was never going to go back in the Marine Corps. So I thought this was a guy that I could date. 3 years later, he starts looking into the officer program, says that this is where he wants to go. So I said, okay, you're in love. I'm going to give it a shot. I jump on board for this whole Marine Corps spouse experience. Then 9/11 hit. All I could think about was the worst that's going to happen is it's going to be like Desert Storm again because technology is so awesome. We're going to have a little bit of firepower, not that many injuries, not that many casualties. We're going to have just an easy peasy, overdone with technology war. Obviously, that is not the case.
No.
We've been at war for a very long time. No one could have imagined. I don't even think if you would have asked the Marines who had been in Desert Storm and the other service members who had participated in that, do you think that this would happen again? I don't think anybody saw this coming. Going back when I was writing this book, it took me back to a place of reading emails that I had sent my service member through the years. I just wanted to capture what our lives had been, and it's a he said, she said. So it's emails it shows my husband's responses to me, it shows what I emailed him. So you kind of get a bigger picture of how war has affected a military family and service over 15 years, because you have us before we were married, and you have us all the way through my husband's retirement.
Wow. When the Gulf War happened in 1990, an open conflict, and they never closed it because we've never stopped. Not yet. It's been 27 years since the Gulf War started, and we have been continually at war for 27 years, and you've got 15 of that in your book with the life of you and your husband. This is awesome. I can't wait to read this.
Thanks. So, yeah, it goes from OIF 1 through OIF 2, and then it goes to Afghanistan. My husband went over there later and has a deployment where the ships go out to sea. Covers a lot of different aspects of military life.
Amazing. And you've won several awards for this book. It's been out in print now for a couple of years, right?
It came out in June 2016, and yes, it's won 3 awards and was a finalist for another award. One thing I learned about this whole process about book writing is books are so subjective. While I've won awards for the books, I'm flattered, but I could easily just have someone reading the book and say this was the worst thing that's ever been written. I take everything with a grain of salt, but I'm definitely honored to have been recognized by the civilian and military population. One of the books was from a military committee, and the others were from civilian book awards. It's amazing just to be recognized, and because of the awards, I did self-publish out the gate, and I did that for a reason. I actually had 3 publishing offers on the book, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do out the beginning. But because I had my business, USMC Life, I had a lot of relationships with the Military Times, Marine Corps Times, military.com, a lot of your big companies, Military Spouse Magazine. I already had these relationships with these companies, and I knew that I could get PR and I could get them to review my book or at least do a write-up or a link to it, which is marketing is half your battle with a book. So I took the risk.
And being self-published, the risks are even greater, but you actually get the eye-opening experience of seeing exactly what's involved with making a book get it to the shelves.
And it was so much more work than I thought it was going to be. It's not just opening a Word document and typing up a 1,200-word blog essay. It is something that is a much longer process, and then I used 5 different editors. There's a process for it. You have to get a formatter. You have to have it formatted for ebooks. You have to have it formatted for print. Then you have to find the right printer. And then you're thinking, well, what contest do I enter? If I do enter a book contest, there's so much research involved. I'm so glad that I did self-publishing because I was able to leverage a better book deal through my new publisher, Savas Beatty, and they're coming out with my book this October.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It is being re-released, but I feel like because I did that, I was able to keep my message and my book content exactly how I wanted to take it. Because if you do use a publisher, that's a risk because they can edit your book however they want. And because my story was so personal to me and my spouse that I didn't want them to put words in my husband's mouth more than anything because he was a little hesitant to come on board for this process.
Right.
But he certainly gave me his input, and I'm grateful for it.
How long before you're going to be on the New York Times bestseller list, do you think?
I don't think that will ever happen. It's not about the bestsellers list, honestly. It's more about the email that I get in my inbox from someone who's read the book and said, I didn't think anyone else felt this way, that what you explained in your book, it was so raw. I share the deepest, darkest points of my life and the highlights, knowing that what I put on Facebook and everything's perfect and happy. No, my life is not perfect and happy. We had problems in our marriage. We had problems with him deploying and going to war and losing people. I didn't sugarcoat it at all. And so when someone is able to take away that they're not alone and that their story resonates with other people, that's really what gets me going in the morning.
Kristine, can you tell us anything about the book itself? Like, give us a little excerpt, some in your own words, kind of like a Cliff's Note of one of the tear-jerking moments.
Part of the reason I wrote my book was we suffered a really big loss in our family. And my son's birthday is just around the corner, so this time of year is always really hard to talk about it. But we lost our 1-year-old.
Oh, my.
And my husband deployed 6 months later. And he went to Afghanistan for one of the worst wars our country has seen.
Oh, my.
And talk about relying upon my military family to get me through. Like, I was in 29 Palms, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and we had just moved there. Our son passed away unexpectedly. And it was at the lowest of lows for both of us. And we had our older son, and we were just trying to keep his life as normal as possible, to try to keep him happy, to try to keep him engaged, and to not let it crush him.
Oh, wow.
My husband geared up for the deployment and went to Afghanistan with 2-7. And it was kind of a weird situation where normally military deploys as groups with supports. Like you've got aircraft, you've got artillery, you've got all of these supporting elements that go with you. They sent the battalion into Afghanistan with just the battalion. They didn't have a lot of the support, and they relied upon other countries for support that were there, and they relied upon other areas of support, and a lot of them used, and even them didn't respond to requests for support, which is a little odd in my book. But
all of this with this weighing heavy on his mind.
Yes.
And leaving you at home to deal with it. How was the support system the military was providing, or did they?
It was the military spouse community that got me through it. And for him, he's thinking, I cannot die and do this to my wife again. Like, she can't handle another tragedy in her life like this. But for me, it was connecting with my military spouse family that lived on the block. It was the smallest things that mattered. It was going for a walk with a friend. It was sharing lunch. It was having someone take my child for a few hours just so I could have a little bit of quiet time. Then we found out right before he deployed, we were pregnant. We didn't know it until right before he left. And that was a little bit of this highlight, the blossom in my life that made me believe and have faith again that life's not over. Life is not defined by the awful things that happen to you. Life is a series of choices that make or break you into a better person. If you want to become a victim, you can become a victim. You can be sad and miserable the rest of your life, and no one will fault you for it, but you're not truly living.
Right.
And so we had messaged each other back and forth while he was in Afghanistan and I was home. And that was one thing that I decided was I wasn't willing to lose anything more. I wasn't willing to lose my marriage. I wasn't willing to tear apart my family. And from that point on, we began rebuilding our relationship, trying to see how we can move forward as a family together in our community as a whole. It was a powerful moment looking back at it, the day that I decided to do that. And I could hear the pain in his voice, what he was going through. He was in this arduous situation. And here I was in the equally arduous situation where I'm left in the dark and not knowing anything and just deciding that we were going to make this work.
I'm glad you did, because you easily could have been one of the statistics that we hate to talk about. Instead, you're here as a victor. You're here with a story of hope that everybody needs to know. I'm so glad you came on the show to tell us about this.
Thanks, Dave.
How can somebody get a hold of you if they would like to get your book?
Well, it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or most any bookstore. Google 15 Years of War, or you can go to 15yearsofwar.com and it'll auto-forward you to my website. I did want to say this. When I first married my Marine, the whole military life community just seemed so awkward and confusing and scary. After years in it, I realized how special it was. One of those things was we had just moved to a new base in Virginia, and my son had been there 7 weeks or so, and it was his birthday. I was able to host a birthday party for him with 2/3 of the attendees being friends from former duty stations. And he got to hang out with these buddies of his that he hadn't seen forever. And so that's the great piece about military. You move, but you're going to move next to someone you know again, or you're going to have that community. And I think this community is such a special place. It takes a while to get there, but once you're there, it's just an awesome place.
That's right. And you can't get rid of us. We're always going to be here. Even if you get out.
You got places to stay all over the world.
That's right. That's right. Just knock on a door and they'll go, hey, haven't seen you, or I've never seen you, but I'm so glad to meet you.
That's right. I have hosted someone in my house that I had never met in person. It's just a fellow advocate, and he had gone through some health issues. And I was like, come to my house. Come over. We'll take care of you. That's just who we are. We open doors. We take care of one another. It's a good place to be.
Yep. To heck with the kids going, Mom, Dad, do you know them?
Yeah. They don't even ask anymore. I think they're so used to the revolving door of people coming in. Yeah. Well,
Kristine, I think we have pretty much used up our time. We've got a chance to talk about 15 Years of War. It's available, you said, in multiple places. It will not be hard to find. And I'm going to make sure that it is on the logo screen, the part that has your picture and says Meet Kristine Schellhaus. They'll be able to see what the book looks like, so they'll know what to look for if there's any doubt. What's the best way to reach you by email?
I'm available at info@KristineSpeaks.com. Kristine with a K.
And that's also your website, so people can find out all kinds of things about you, including your consulting business. Outstanding.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't charge for consulting, so if someone's got a quick and easy question, they want to ask a couple questions away, I just want to help people. If people are looking for like a really long, in-depth thing, then that's another conversation. But I love to just talk to spouses and let them know, here's a few tidbits, and here's what got me started. And that gives me a lot of fulfillment.
Fantastic. You have a great day now.
Thanks, Dave. Great talking to you.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Do you like Spouse World 1-to-1? Want to support the efforts to bring interesting and inspiring military spouses into the spotlight? Then go to patreon.com/spouseworld and become a patron. It's a great way to spread the love.
Military Spouse World 1-to-1 is a BDE Productions podcast. The views and opinions of the host or any of the guests are not that of BDE Productions or sponsors. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe to Spouse World 1-to-1.